in the shadows of the night, as silence blanketed the city of Washington, Hamilton Howard Albert Fish, infamously known as Albert Fish, was born on May 19, 1870. His birth set forth an ominous prelude, as his father, Randall, was 43 years older than his mother, Ellen, as if fate was paving the way for a life shrouded in darkness and turmoil. Torment lurked within the family tree. His uncle succumbed to madness. His brother was confined to a psychiatric institution, and his sister was diagnosed with a mental illness. 3 of his surviving cousins battled their own psychological demons, while his mother endured auditory and visual hallucinations. His father, a riverboat captain who later traded the waters for factory work, met an abrupt end in 1875 due to a heart attack. Bereft and alone, Fish's mother surrendered him to an orphanage where he endured relentless assaults and physical violence. Paradoxically, instead of succumbing to pain, Fish derived pleasure from the beatings, embracing the sting of cruelty. At the age of 8, he escaped the confines of the orphanage, only to step into an even darker realm. In 1880, Fish's mother secured a stable government job, enabling her to retrieve her son from the clutches of the orphanage. However, by 1882, when Fish turned 12, he had already embarked on a twisted relationship with a young mailman who solicited him for vile acts such as drinking urine and consuming feces. Together they lurked in public restrooms, spying on unsuspecting youths and reveling in their vulnerability. Fish continued to craft amorous letters to women, obtaining their names and addresses from advertising companies or matrimonial advertisements. In 1890, he made his way to New York, where, according to accounts, he commenced his reign of terror by violating young children. In 1898, Fish's mother arranged a marriage for him with Anna Mary Hoffman, 9 years his junior, and together they had 6 children. During this period, Fish worked as a painter and confessed to molesting children, particularly those under the age of 6. One notable incident occurred when he visited a wax museum with a friend and stole a piece of a statue, landing him in prison. The year 1910 marked a sinister turn as Fish encountered a 19-year-old youth named Thomas Kedden. Their relationship was founded on violence and subjugation, with Fish subjecting Kedden to relentless beatings and sexual abuse. It remains unclear whether Kedden consented to this macabre arrangement or if Fish coerced him into submission. After a decade of depravity, Fish recounted with a sinister smile how he and Kedden abducted a boy, confining him to an abandoned farmhouse where they inflicted a week of relentless torture. Fish vividly recalled the boy's screams and the terrified gaze in his eyes. He admitted that his initial intention was to murder Kedden, mutilate his body, and feast on his flesh, but the sweltering heat deterred him, fearing the odor of decay would expose their grisly deed. Instead, he opted to cauterize the wounds, smear them with petroleum jelly, and leave the boy to his fate with a meager $10. With callous indifference, Fish boarded the first train out of town, unconcerned about the boy's ultimate survival. The year 1917 brought another twist of betrayal, as Fish's wife absconded with his possessions and fled into the arms of another man, leaving their children in his care. This abandonment pushed Fish further into the depths of madness. He began experiencing auditory hallucinations, commanding him to inflict pain and torment upon innocent children. He awoke from slumber wrapped in carpets, driven by voices that instructed him to inflict self-harm. He took to mutilating his genitals and claimed to receive divine messages, urging him to embrace cannibalism. Fish's appetite for human flesh knew no bounds. He returned home with bags of human remains, their origins shrouded in mystery, and savored the forbidden meat for dinner. In 1919, he targeted a mentally challenged youth in Washington, selecting his victims from marginalized communities, those with cognitive disabilities or of African American descent, as he believed their disappearances would raise little alarm. Fish's depravity knew no bounds as he lured children with promises of treats, only to subject them to unthinkable horrors. His arsenal of torture included a saw, a large knife, and a collection of small, sharp tools, instruments of hell as he referred to them. On July 11, 1924, Fish attempted to entice 8-year-old Patricia Keel, playing in her family's farm, with offers of money in exchange for help finding something. Fortunately, Patricia's mother spotted them and chased Fish away. Undeterred, he returned, driven by a peculiar desire to sleep in the barn. By then, the 54-year-old Fish, plagued by auditory hallucinations, claimed to hear voices commanding him to murder and maim children. Soon after, he encountered 2 boys playing in the street and invited them home for a meal. As the boys played in the basement, they stumbled upon his sinister tools and fled in terror. When questioned by the police, one of the boys described Fish as a gray-haired, gray-eyed man dressed in a gray suit, earning him the moniker, the Gray Man. In 1930, a disturbing letter sent to a woman who had placed a personal ad in a newspaper led to Fish's capture, and in 1931, he was committed to Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital for evaluation. However, let us rewind to 1928, when Fish responded to a newspaper ad posted by a family seeking employment for their 18-year-old son. At 58 years of age, Fish infiltrated their home, intending to bind, torture, and murder the older brother, Edward. Instead, he manipulated the family, gaining their trust and ultimately abducting their 10-year-old daughter, Grace, during a social outing. In 1934, a letter arrived at the home of Grace's parents, sent by an anonymous source. Unable to read, they enlisted their son Edward to decipher its contents. The letter divulged the grisly details of cannibalism and confessed to Grace's murder, providing a harrowing account of her final moments. The letter described how, on June 3, 1928, Fish had lured Grace with the promise of a party, only to take her to an abandoned house, undress, and strangle her to death. He mutilated her body, consuming her flesh in a matter of minutes. However, a minor mistake in the letter led the police directly to Fish, and upon his arrest, he readily confessed to Grace's murder. During his trial, Fish divulged additional crimes, including the murder of 9-year-old Francis McDonnell in 1924, whom he hanged from a tree in a secluded forest, subjecting him to sexual abuse and intending to mutilate his body. He also admitted to the murder of 3-year-old Billy Gaffney in 1917, whom he abducted while playing with his older brother and a friend. Fish took Billy to an abandoned house, tied him up, and left him overnight. The following day, he returned with a leather strap and mercilessly beat the child, severing his ear, nose, and lips. He slashed his abdomen and drank his blood before finally ending his life. Fish then dismembered the body, disposing of the remains in a lake, save for one piece of flesh he took home to devour. During the trial, medical experts unanimously deemed Fish insane and unfit for society. However, the court, after hearing numerous testimonies, declared him sane and guilty, sentencing him to death. His final words before his execution were, "I don't know why I am here." Following his death, Fish's attorney discovered a detailed account of his heinous acts, but he refused to disclose its contents, stating it was the most appalling thing he had ever read. And so, the tale of Albert Fish, a man whose name strikes fear into the hearts of many, comes to a close. His legacy of terror and depravity remains, a haunting reminder of the depths of human cruelty.